Welcome to Jazz Time. JazzTime.com is an online store that buys, sells, trades authentic luxury watches. We make these videos so our customers can easily choose the best watch for themselves in the comfort of their own home. If you like this watch and would like to purchase it at the lowest price anywhere online, click on the link in the description below to buy it at JazzTime.com. Today, I'm going to be reviewing the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak self-winding 41mm rose gold with a black dial reference 15500OR.OO.1220OR.01. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the history of the Royal Oak, then tell you about where this watch stands in the lineup of other similar Royal Oaks, then tell you about the case bezel dial bracelet movement, finally try it on and give you my thoughts. So let's start with the history. The Royal Oak was created in 1972 by Gerald Genta, who was commissioned by AP Audemars Piguet to create the world's first luxury sports watch in non-precious metal at the time, which was steel. And it was not an immediate smash hit, although it did turn the watch world upside down in that watches were no longer these elegant little dainty things that only rich people would wear. In fact, younger people would wear them in a very sporty type manner, even though the watch is made of steel, which is how AP first made it. They charged the same price or even more expensive than if it was in precious metal. And they did so. When they did so, they created the luxury sports watch segment. Before, watches were, of course, luxurious. Not everybody had a watch. It was a very expensive thing to have, kind of like an automobile. It was not the most cheapest thing you could get. And so if you were fortunate enough to get one, well, you must have been doing pretty good. Now, they obviously made many types of watches, wrist watches, pocket watches, etc., but there had never been a luxurious sports watch, and this watch was the very first one. And since then, it's already been 50 years, pretty much every single watch brand has a luxury sports watch section in their collection. And you can thank Audemars Piguet for that, or more specifically, Gerald Genta. So it's an iconic watch, and even Rolex has to follow suit on that. Okay, now let's start talking about where this watch stands in the lineup. Now, the Royal Oak, it basically has the same design for the last 50 years. So how did they take the same design, put 1,000 different variations on it, and resell it to you every single year and make you think that you're getting a new product? Well, they do so by making little tiny evolutionary adjustments to make the watch ever better and better each time they produce it. And this watch is one generation back. Now it has a reference number 15500. The new reference is 15510. Now I'll tell you about the differences when I start talking about the specifics of the watch, but this particular one was created from 2019 to 2022, and then it was replaced by the 50th anniversary, which was produced in 22, and then in 23 and forward, it was the same as the 50th anniversary, except it didn't have the 50th rotor. Okay, and the watch that preceded this one was a reference 15400. I can't tell you about all the little differences, but I will tell you about some of the differences when I start talking about the specifics. So this watch was created for approximately 3 years, 2019 to 2022. It has the latest movement, and as you can see, it's a very, very modern. Almost as modern as the latest one, latest reference number. Now, if you wanted a time and date only Royal Oak in rose gold, the only option at that time, 2019 to 22, was black. Now they actually make it also in blue, but at the time, they only made it in black. So this was the only option, which is not a bad option because rose gold on black is very luxurious, very beautiful. Now, if you wanted to go chronograph, they've made different variations. On the Royal Oaks, they don't make so many complications. They have what you see here, which is time and date only. Then after that, they have chronograph. Then after that, they have tourbillon. Then after that, they have perpetual calendar, and that's pretty much it. Oh, they also have an open work skeleton. So that makes 5 complications or 5 different variations of it. Now, if you want the time and date only in rose gold, boom, this is what you see. It's a very clean look, very beautiful, very luxurious. It's unmistakably AP, and it's also the cheapest of all the rose gold APs. So once you start adding the complications, you really bump up the price For example, like an open work skeleton in rose gold is going to cost you like almost 200 grand. So, and this one's only going to, at jazztime.com is going to cost you high 60s, at least as of 2024. So it's a great, great option here. Now, since this watch is no longer in production, it's very unlikely we can get you a new one, but we can get you a used one. And as you can see from this video, we give it a nice polish. Now, some people think, oh, I don't want to polish my watch. Well, those people are mistaken because they don't have the right polisher and they don't have the right tools and experience to make the watch look fantastic like we do. We've done thousands of watches, literally, probably thousands of APs as well. And it's not to brag, that's just telling you the truth. We've been around for 15 years. So we really know what we're doing. And the reviews on Google Maps and many other places prove that. So if you want your watch to look like new and you want to buy an older version for less money that still looks very similar, and let us do our job and detail it, as we call it in the industry, and make it look perfect retail ready for a customer like yourself, well, this is the end product. What I'm holding for you is our job after we've given this watch a light polish. Now, of course, we didn't polish it to death. We're not removing the edges. You know, don't call here and tell me, oh, hey, I don't want you to remove the edges. Oh, really? I was thinking about removing the edges before I sent it to you. Come on. So, you know, let us do our job. We'll make sure it looks perfect, you know, as we do all the other 1,000 watches that we do. So when you look at this watch, you realize, wow, it looks really well done. And you could do it at a lower price point than a modern one. That's really the selling point of this one. Now, of course, if you have the money to buy the newer reference, by all means, buy it. Okay, now that's a little bit about where this watch stands in the lineup. Now let's start talking about the watch itself, the case. The case is 41 millimeters. Now, I have to tell you also, though, the AP 41 millimeters is a little bit deceiving because it has these big lugs. It's hard to even call them lugs. But where the case connects with the bracelet is very thick, is a lot thicker than many other watches. So if you compare it to Daytona, you might say, oh, the Daytona is only 40 millimeters, it's 41, it's all that much bigger. But actually it is quite a bit bigger because also it has a taper. When you turn this watch on its side and you look at it, it has the thickness is not that much, which is a good thing. I think it's only like around 10.5 millimeters in thickness, which is actually even thinner than the Datejust, by the way. Datejust is like around 12 millimeters. This is only 10.5. So the thickness is quite thin. It's not too thin. You don't want it too thin. But when you turn it that way, you'll see that it has a taper. That means the bracelet, the way that it connects with the head of the watch, has a certain taper that does not allow it to bend past a certain degree. I think it looks like to me, it looks like 45 degrees to me. Yeah. But on a Datejust, it can go completely 90 degrees, which you can allow it to fit a smaller wrist size. So that means this watch is only going to fit those who have, I would say, a 7-inch wrist or larger. If you have a 7-inch wrist or smaller, probably you should go with 37. Okay, now that's the case. Now you'll notice that AP does, in my opinion, the best polish, but maybe Patek as well. Okay, so fine. But Patek doesn't do a lot of alternating between brushed and high polish. Their stuff is usually high polish. That's their thing. So I have to actually give the edge to AP, where they can alternate between high polish and brushed and really give the watch this fantastic, amazing look on it. And they do the top of it high brush finish, and they do the edge, this beveled edge right here. It's a very beautiful bevel edge, and it extends down the length of the bracelet, and it's also in high polish. And you can also see that on the bezel, high polish on the edge, and then brush finish on the top. Okay, that's enough about the case. It is a big case. 41 millimeter wears a little bit bigger than an average Rolex, but that's not a bad thing. Big watches are cool. Depends. Small watches are cool too. Just depends on how you're gonna wear it. Okay, now none of that has changed really from the current generation 15510 and the 15500. Okay, but what has changed? Let's talk about the dial. This has changed. This is actually the change that has occurred. Now you see how this dial, the logo, okay, let's start with this. The first thing is that it has a grand tapisserie pattern. They all have that, the newer version and this one. What is different is that, well, let's start with what is different between the older generation. The indices, the 15400, which is the generation before this, let's call it third generation. Let's call this one second, and then call let's call the first one, 15400, first generation. Let's call the second generation, and then the current one, let's call it third generation. That'll be easier. So this second generation one, as you see here, the hours and the minute hands are fatter than they were before, which makes it more legible. That definitely is a plus. Okay. Before they were too skinny and you couldn't see it very well. The only thing is here that the AP sign is is fashioned in gold, and then the words Audemars Piguet are written in white. They're written, they're printed, not embossed in gold. And that changed in the third generation. They got rid of the redundancy AP and then Audemars Piguet. They just wrote the words Audemars Piguet in gold and got rid of the insignia or logo AP. And that's really, to me, to be honest, I don't hardly even noticed it. I don't really care for one way or another. I mean, it's just a print on the dial. To me, it's not a big deal. So, but what is a bigger deal is that you see how the indices, that is the hour markers, and the hands, there is some space between them. So you kind of have short hour markers and a short minute and or hour hand. So that the thing is, this watch doesn't fill the space in the center very well because the hands are so short. As you know, I know it's a little bit hard to see from this video. You might think, well, what's the other one look like? Well, if you want to know what the newer version looks like, just go to jazztime.com and you can look at what the third generation looks like. In the third generation, they solved that problem because this watch is no complications. So naturally, you have to fill this space, and they didn't fill it very well in this version. So how they filled it in the second and the third generation is they made the hour markers longer and the hour hand longer, so that it almost touches and it fills the space much better. They also made the minute hand also larger. They kept the same thickness of the indices, which is good for legibility, but they made the hands longer. And instead of putting AP, they put Audemars Piguet all fashioned in gold. Now, it's a very, very minor change. That's why I said I would not be upset to get this one or the other one. And if you don't care for that tiny little change, it's not really that big of a deal. It didn't bother me when this watch was released and didn't really make me want to change it to the new one once it was. But hey, look, it's your money. And if you want to get the newer one, we'll get a few. All right, that's the dial. Let's talk about the bezel. The bezel, of course, is iconic. Now, what can I say about it other than it has this beautiful octagonal shape, high polish on the edges, brush finish on the top with these hexagonal screws that are actually false screws. They're acceptors, not screws. They accept the screw coming from the other side. Okay, it's it's the most iconic part of the Audemars Piguet watch, and it's the centerpiece of their brand, I would actually say. Oh, by the way, I should also say, before leaving the dial, I forgot to say that because the movement has been changed on this watch from the previous first generation, the date at the 3 o'clock position, it used to be too close to the center, which kind of made it look awkward. And now they were able to push it out toward the periphery. Why? Because the movement itself is larger now. And that allows, and it not only is it larger, it's set to fit the watch correctly. So it's pushed out toward the periphery where it should be. And that remains the same in the third generation. So there's not that much difference in the second and third generation, but there's quite a bit of difference in the first generation. Okay, now let's move on to the bracelet. The bracelet here. Now, this bracelet is reference 12220OR. It's made of all rose gold. It has the beautiful typical design of the Royal Oak bracelet, which extends the case and makes the watch look like it was harmoniously designed by one person, which it was. It has high polish down the edges, high polish in between the interlinks, and then brush finish down the top. And then when you move it around in certain lights, it looks like it's glistening. It looks like an absolute perfection, a perfect bracelet. I would argue that I would probably even say like the AP has the best bracelet on the market. I think they in terms of beauty, in terms of functionality, in terms of heft, thickness, everything. It's the best. Looks the best, at least. Okay, that's the bracelet, and it has a new buckle too. It's a butterfly clasp. You press it. It's very unlikely to open unless you actually open it because you have to press both sides simultaneously. So it's done very well. Now let's move on to the movement here. Now the movement is the newer movement, which is important because there's a caliber 4302. It's the same movement that's used in their code that is in their this one right here. It was created, I think, in 2017 when they rehauled all their movements. The old movement that they had was really just too small. This has a diameter of 32. The old one, I think it had a diameter of 28. you might think, well, 4 millimeters is not that big. Well, I mean, the watch is only, that covers like 15%. So it's 15% bigger. So that is a big deal. Imagine if a motor in your car was 15% bigger. So it does make a difference. It makes the watch really, makes the movement really stick out. And it has a beautiful cutout rotor. In my opinion, one of the best movements that is made on the market. Just beautifully done, beautiful cutout rotor. Looks very modern. And actually, I would even say it looks better than Patek Movement. Now, the power reserve is 70 hours, which definitely is better than Patek, because Patek is making movements between. They're still old school. They're going to have to step up the game, because no other company is doing this 40, 50-hour power reserve garbage anymore. Rolex, AP, Richard Mille, all doing the 70-hour power reserve. And by the way, all the big brands, Audemars Piguet, Richard Mille, Rolex, are doing 5-year minimum, and Patek was doing 2-year. I mean, it's a joke. I mean, if you think your watch is so great, you got to increase the warranty. And actually, as I heard from one of my customers, they called me and told me, hey, actually, Patek changed their warranty in 2024 to 5 years. I'm not sure that's true, so anyone can confirm that. But good for them, because that's how it should be. And I believe that Patek will also start increasing the efficiency of their watches and changing it from 40-hour power reserve to meet an industry standard of now 70. But anyways, AP does meet that standard. And they actually, I believe, are the pioneer in this, because this watch came out in 2019, and back then nobody was doing 70-hour power reserves, and they are. So here you go. All right. All right, now it's time for me to try this watch on my wrist. I'm 6 foot tall, 200 pounds. I have a 7.5-inch wrist. As you can see, the watch, in my opinion, it looks perfect on my wrist. I would say those who have a 7-inch wrist or larger definitely could benefit from this. If you have a smaller than that, you should go with the 37. And as I said, I kind of told you my opinion before and throughout this video, is that if you want to buy a little bit cheaper of a AP in gold, well, this is the cheapest gold one that you can get on a bracelet, that is. And if you want to go even cheaper than the current version, then you can go 2nd generation. Or if you really want to go even cheaper than that, you can go 1st generation. But in the 2nd generation, you still more or less get all the benefit that you do from the 1st generation, because it still has the same movement, and the only real difference is the dial, which it's a very minor difference. It is a difference, though. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you it's not, but it's less of a difference. Okay. All right. Anyways, so those are my thoughts. I think it's a fantastic watch, and for the price point, you're really stepping into a big boy watch. And for most people, there's going to be more than enough that they can comfortably say, "Hey, man, I got an AP. It's gold. Now a baller. Please up my, you know what." All right, sounds good, guys. Thanks for watching. And if you'd like to buy this watch at the lowest price anywhere online, click on the link in the description below to buy it at justtime.com.
If you want to find out more about the watch you just saw in the video, you can just click below on Show More to see the full description. Then you can check the link next to model as seen in video, click on it, and you will get to the proper page where you can see all the details. If you're watching on a mobile phone, you have to click on the arrow down on the right hand side below the video to see the full description. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. If you would like to share this video with your friends, you can use the share button below and share it on any platform you like. If you have questions, constructive feedback, want to tell us about some mistakes or misspeaks, just write a comment below. If you want to see more videos like this, you should subscribe to our channel and visit our channel page, where you can find all the videos. And if you're interested in a specific watch brand, you can check out our playlists. If you want to check the price for a watch or want to buy one, remember at justtime.com you always get a steep discount, so you should check the prices with us. If you want to know the price for a specific watch, just go to Google, type in JazzTime, plus the brand, model, and the details you're interested in, and Google will find the right page for you. Thank you for watching.